Okay. Welcome, Emma, back to Benzotired.
Hi.
We did a recording 2 days ago, and I used a service that I've been using, but I can't use that anymore because the whole thing got corrupted. So we had this really long chat. We had a really good recording. Unfortunately, technology, sometimes this
Yeah,
stuff happens.
it goes against you. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, but we keep on trying anyways.
We're
So,
going to
um,
pretend that we're just doing this for the first time ever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So Emma's been on Benzo Tired many, many, many times. And the last time that you as an audience heard about her taper was the episode that we did called Working with Bind. And at that time, she was tapering quetiapine for the international audience, that's Seroquel, lorazepam, also known as Ativan, and Remeron. Remeron's the brand name, and mirtazapine is
hmm
the generic name. So I thought it'd be cool if you can share with the audience how your tapers went slash are going. I think you
Yes.
started off with the quetiapine.
Yeah. So I got off the quetiapine and I've got off the lorazepam, which is incredible. And the last time we did the call, I was tapering the quetiapine. Uh, so basically, I ended up on quetiapine in the psychiatric units in a benzo withdrawal. And they gave me such a huge dose. I ended up on 400 milligrams of quetiapine, and nothing was helping the withdrawal. And the only thing it did do is it did make me sleep. Together with mirtazapine, they gave me 30 milligrams of mirtazapine, and it was all given to me against my will. I didn't go in there being like, "Yeah, psychiatric unit is going to help me." No, I went in there very much against my own will, because everyone thought I was crazy in benzo withdrawal, obviously with akathisia, and I had suicidal thoughts. So yeah, it was all there. And so I basically obviously reinstated the benzo at 8 months out, and I came back to a baseline where I could function and I could taper. And I was very, very adamant. Like even after the reinstatement, I could really feel this 400 milligrams of quetiapine in my body when I took it at night. And I was like, right, this is the first drug I'm going to tackle, because it was just such a heavy drug. So basically, I went from 400 milligrams to 150. And that was quite easy to do. Those like bigger doses on quetiapine are normally much easier. Or especially those kind of drugs where they just go up to like 600 milligrams or something, that kind of span. It seems to be that you can do those kind of like slightly bigger chunks, and then you'll get to a certain stage where you're like, okay, now I need to go to 10% kind of thing. So that's what happened to me. I got to 150. At the time, I was using a private psychiatrist that I found through a friend, who was incredibly expensive. And he was sort of like, you can taper down 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams. So he said, like, it'll be fine. And to be honest, it had been fine up until that point doing the 50s. But I did 50 milligrams and went down to 100. And that was really hard on my system. And that's when I was like, right, I have to now go back to literally 5%. So I ended up at 100 milligrams. I had to wait for the symptoms to go. It was really, really jarring and awful, that cut. And I basically decided to leave the quetiapine at 100 milligrams because I was so terrified to move it, very much like you. I couldn't really move it like even 5% without getting a lot of symptoms. So I was like, right, I've reached my limit. I was also on extended release quetiapine, which a lot of people say that you can't cut in half. And I think when you're really harmed, you don't want to change brand. You don't really want to change to like a different consistency of the pill. I mean, you've tried that, haven't you, with your Valium, and you've tried a water taper, and it's just been like an absolute nightmare. And we know that these certain things sometimes they can destabilize us. And I knew that I had to stay on this extended release pill. So I made the decision in the end to cut that pill in half. But I think it's fine if you get the like little crumbs and you kind of take it over time. So you're making it extended release. You're not taking it all at once. Because when you cut the
Mhm.
pill, it becomes instant and you get everything instantly, which obviously can be quite jarring. Anyway, so left that at 100 because I was like mulling that all over, terrified to
Mhm.
move it. And then I focused on the lorazepam because I was at that point had been tapering the quetiapine for maybe 6 or 7 months. I'd had this reinstatement that had somehow brought me back to life, and I was worried that I was going to go into benzo tolerance, which is obviously what we're told all the time, and especially on the forums. And I was on the forums a lot, and I was on these kind of group chats in the evenings, like, talking to people about it, and they were like, well, could be benzo tolerance. Every single time I got like a side
Right.
effect, they were like, it's benzo tolerance. So I
Yeah.
was very, very like, okay, I need to do the lorazepam. It's not always the case. You've been holding your Valium for a very long time now, and
Yes, very long.
lots of
Yeah.
people hold, and it's definitely a possibility. It's not always about tolerance.
Hmm.
So anyway, I
Well
water
said.
tapered. Yes.
Well said.
um, I water tapered the benzo from zero point 0.5. So that was my reinstatement dose. I was initially on 1 milligram of lorazepam when I was taking it for the initial time, the 6 months that destroyed my nervous system. But I reinstated at zero point 0.5, which is the equivalent of 5 milligrams of Valium.
AKA diazepam. Yes. Yes.
Diazepam.
Yes. Yes.
Diazepam. I
Diazepam.
love your accent.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
yes, so yes. So I decided to water taper the benzo, and I put this little zero point 0.5 lorazepam pill into the water. And for me, it was so good. It just dissolved. It was really easily dissolvable, and like it went into clear water. There was no particles. So I was like, okay, this is great.
That's a
And
different case with diazepam. It does not dissolve in water. You can't do it
right?
that
And you
way.
end up with all the bits, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be accurate.
Hmm.
So thank God. I mean, I had to go through a private psychiatrist to get this fucking medication. Sorry to swore.
No, swear away.
Far away.
You're
Yeah,
so
because the
tired.
NHS over here in the UK, they wouldn't prescribe it to me. And initially, I got this drug from a private doctor for tinnitus. And obviously, he wasn't going to prescribe it to me because I basically hated him, and I'd sent him quite kind of verbal emails like, "What the fuck have you done to me?" So I couldn't go back to him.
Understandable. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I reinstated it, I was like, fuck, I'm gonna need to keep taking this until I obviously very slowly taper off. So I
Hmm.
managed to find a psychiatrist through the grapevine, who was willing to prescribe me. But what that meant was that it was incredibly expensive every month. Like this huge psychiatry thing, and then, the session with him, and then also buying the medication. But anyway, so that's what I had to do. And I tapered down to 0.125 of the benzo, of the lorazepam. And it was actually just like night and day. I didn't have very many symptoms. I had air hunger, which was, that horrible feeling where you're like, oh, can I breathe? And a few things like uptick in tinnitus, but nothing major. And so I decided to hold my benzo dose because I knew this drug was my initial harm drug, and I wanted to return to the quetiapine because I just did so much research on this. Like, do I keep a little bit of benzo when you're polydrugged? Is that going to help me get off the other medication? Or if I get rid of the benzo, is that going to make my further tapers harder because my body's healing from the benzo? It was just this whole thing for ages. Like, there's so many ways you could do this, but I decided to keep that little bit of benzo, and I went back to the quetiapine, and it was a completely different story. It'd probably been about 10 months of tapering the lorazepam, so 10 months of holding the quetiapine. And yeah, I could taper it, and I managed to get off the quetiapine probably within, like, I want to say 8 months. The taper went so well, I wasn't really experiencing very many symptoms as I was going down, and I jumped off at zero point zero 0.01 on the scales in grams. And I dry cut all the way down as I wanted to stay on that same pill. I just intuitively knew that's what I had to do. And a lot of people ask me all the time, like, well, how did you do that? How did you go down to that tiny crumb? Water tapering is obviously so much more accurate, and we can see with the syringes. But my scale went down to zero point zero 0.08, which was this tiny little crumb on my thumb. And from there, I just had to, by eye, work out what was what. So, for example, if you cut that in half, that's going to be zero point zero 0.04. And then if you cut that in half again, that's going to be zero point zero 0.02. And then again, you're going to go to zero point zero 0.01. So you're just doing that by eye. And it worked, and I got off
Hmm.
it, and I didn't experience any kind of rebound anxiety or insomnia or any symptoms. It was like night and day, and it was just crazy that I couldn't even move it before when I was at that 100 milligrams.
Right.
yeah, time is definitely a healer. And especially when you're removing another drug that's potentially healed your, hurt you, which was for me, the
Hmm.
lorazepam. So yeah, got off that.
How was that feeling getting off of it, of the benzo? Was it
Well,
euphoric or non-eventful? How
this
did,
was the quetiapine that I
oh,
was
I'm
getting.
sorry, the
Yeah,
quetiapine,
it's
yeah.
okay. There's so many of them. Um, yeah, it was really like, I can't believe I've done this, you know? I
Hmm.
can't believe it. And I was also worried about my sleep. I was like, oh my God, I don't want insomnia. Because like, look, withdrawal, insomnia and withdrawal is like trauma. It's like it's so
Yes.
awful. And but then I did have the mirtazapine. So all the while, the mirtazapine's there, the 30 milligram mirtazapine, and I actually did at this stage try and taper the mirtazapine. I thought, oh, well, let's see how this feels once off the quetiapine, but it disturbed my sleep immediately. The symptoms were so brutal. I felt like I couldn't remember anything that I said like 5 minutes ago. I felt like I was having a stroke. Really weird neurological feelings where I don't know, your body's just like contorting and all the horrible stuff. So I
Yeah.
just left that. I was like, I'm just going to leave that one and hope that that gets better at some stage.
Hmm.
And I then decided to carry on with the benzo taper because it was that whole decision. Do I get off the other ones and keep this little bit of benzo, or do I just get off the benzo? And because the mirtazapine wasn't movable, I thought, okay, well, my decision is the benzo. So I tapered the 0.125, which is around 1 milligram of diazepam,
Hmm.
which sounds tiny. And for a lot of people, that's just crazy to them that I'm even doing that. But yeah, it,
Well, if you've read the Mosley deprescribing guidelines, you will see how much of an impact such a small dose can have, how
yeah,
many receptors that occupies. So
yeah,
once I saw that
exactly.
graph, it just explained so much to me.
So much. And I
Yeah,
think when
yeah,
you're somebody like us who's incredibly sensitive and has been harmed by the medication, there is just no such thing as being too careful. Like there really is not.
100%. Hmm.
Oh, and having been through benzo withdrawal and being hit with this wall of terror and akathisia, it's just like just anything for that not to happen. So I was willing to, yeah, I spread this last bit out over 4 months, so 1 milligram of Valium over 4 months,
Hmm.
and I just was just really careful, and I got down to 0.01 again, the tiniest, the last speck, which is much easier, obviously doing a water taper, and I jumped off. And I did feel there was a moment, there was a few days, well, a couple of weeks where I was like, a bit of PTSD, a bit of like, fucking hell, is this going to hit me any second? And also, you hear these stories of it hitting you like 6 months out, for example. That does happen. There is this
Yeah.
thing of 6 months. So anyway, but you just have to. I just kept on putting it back in the mind, focusing on the good stuff in life, and I got off it.
I mean, I can't wait for me for that to
Yes.
happen to me. I can't wait. I mean, I can't wait. I have to wait, but I'm like really looking forward to be rid of this drug forever. And I can imagine it must have been just a relief, and also just no more prescription needed for
Mm.
that, no seeing
Gosh.
a doctor, blah
Gosh.
blah blah, all of that. And then you're doing pretty well, I
Hmm.
reckon.
Yeah.
And you have still yet one drug to taper off,
Yes.
mirtazapine, which you sometimes call, which I find funny, fatazepine. I was on it for a week. Years
Yeah.
ago, when I wasn't sleeping, they try to give you anything just to
Yeah.
help you sleep. It didn't help for
Yeah.
me. What I remember from that particular medication, and I was like in severe benzo withdrawal, but I remember being completely zombified by the drug, just feeling like, "Ugh," like a drooling zombie. But
Mm.
also, it gave me the munchies so bad. I was like, I
Mm.
wanted to eat. I wanted to eat. I was like, I'd never had that sensation
Mm.
before, except for with the mirtazapine. So that was, the
It's
mirtazapine. So
yeah.
I remember that you were saying something about brand switches. What's going on with the mirtazapine for
Yeah,
you?
so recently, so it's been like I got off the benzo last November. So where are we in May now? And I didn't experience anything untoward like when I got off. Like definitely tinnitus always goes up when I get off a drug. That's and ironically that's what I went in for initially. I mean,
Yes.
how
Yeah,
ironic is that?
it
Um,
is. Yeah.
but the perspective has changed. I was worried about my tinnitus, but because withdrawal was so hideous and I almost died, it was like, oh, well, the tinnitus is kind of like not as bad as that. I'm just happy to be
Mm,
alive.
yeah.
But yes, it's still very much there, but it's definitely lowered the more that I I get off the drugs, I'm like, oh, but it gets very stimulated when I'm tapering. And anyway, yeah, so the mirtazapine brand change. So I've been on the same brand for 3 years, and this was obviously going to be the drug that I was going to be on the longest because I left it to the last. And everyone, they say stay on the same brand, and I am a big believer in that, especially when you're harmed. And I did actually try changing brands before. Well, I didn't even try. I didn't understand that that was even a thing. And I got DPDR. I got this weird, like, dissociative feeling where I felt like I was leaving my body. And I was like, fuck, okay, I'm going to have to keep getting the same brand whilst I'm healing. Because I think when you are really harmed, anything can sort of tip the apple cart. It's not the same for everyone, but definitely for me, I am brand sensitive. That's what it's called. So recently, I couldn't find my brand anywhere. Apparently, there's shortages. I mean, you hear this all the time, don't you? Like people say, my brand was discontinued. And it does happen. All these different manufacturers
Yeah,
around the world.
I
Yeah.
even had I was on two benzodiazepines for a longer period of time before I went into the withdrawal and dying stuff.
Yeah.
And my first benzodiazepine was called what was it now? Lormetazepam, and it just ran
Yeah.
out. So it was just no longer available. And then I got switched to a long-acting one, but I didn't know about any of these things. I was just thinking that I
Right.
was getting a different sleeping pill. But that can also happen. Your whole even your generic can just be gone at some point.
Yes,
So
exactly. So like for people who like don't really understand this or never heard of this before, it's like you have the main manufacturer who made the drug, like the lorazepam, or like for this, it's
right,
like mirtazapine.
Wyeth. That was Wyeth back in the day.
Wyeth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then with mirtazapine, it's like Remeron. That's the name, isn't it? So you get the
Yeah.
original Remeron, which is much more expensive for people to buy. And for like the NHS over here, it's much more expensive for them to buy it. So it's not even available here. I can't get the
Hmm.
original Remeron. And then you have the generics. So it's all these brands who have basically decided to make this drug and it's a cheaper version of it. Apparently it's the same, but you could have someone making mirtazapine in China and you could have someone making mirtazapine in Spain, and you think, there might be a little bit of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, people just we get brainwashed, don't we? And pharmacists, they say there's no way it could be different. It's the same ingredients, but it's like I liken it to like an analogy. You've got two chefs making the same meal. That
Hmm.
meal's going to be a little bit different because
Yeah.
a different person's
Yeah.
made it,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think, when you're so harmed and you're so sensitive, like, why
Mm,
even risk it? Why even risk it? Even
even
if there's a
risk it.
1% chance
Yeah.
that it could destabilize you, why take it?
Yeah.
So I would have to agree with you. So
Yeah.
in terms of, you said that you didn't have a lot of symptoms or not disabling symptoms at least,
So
while tapering.
yes. So the mirtazapine, I started my taper, I don't know, maybe it was in January. I think around January, February, and completely different, like night and day again, a similar situation to the quetiapine, leaving it and then getting off another drug and then going back and all that, or getting less drug in a system. And also, it's more time since my benzo withdrawal, which was the initial like jar to the brain.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm tapering my mirtazapine really well. I've managed to taper 10. I'm doing 10% cuts, and I'm not experiencing that much. Again, like there's tinnitus, there's head pain. I did have this brand change situation recently, so had to change brand, but then weirdly was hit with a virus at exactly the same time that's going around over here, like a COVID type thing. So I was like really bedbound, but I was experiencing headaches. So for me, the common thing at the moment is headaches and like migraine type headaches. So yeah, but I managed to switch the brands. I'm on a new brand, and I actually managed to get 4 packs of this brand, which I'm so elated. Yesterday, I found this new brand. I rang around all these pharmacies and I was like, thank you. And really itchy nose, and it's like some sort of hay fevery thing over here. The doctor, the NHS, they don't want to prescribe you any more than 1 pack a month. And it's been really hard, but I was literally on the phone to them with this brand change saying I need the same brand whilst I'm tapering off. I cannot, like, this is, like you say, when you're harmed, it's just you can't keep risking it. Every brand is different, a little bit different. And also with mirtazapine, it's so connected to your sleep. And there was a lot of things online of people changing brand and then just getting insomnia. And I'm just like, I
Mm.
just don't want that for me right now. Like that's my
Yeah.
main fear. So yeah, I was so pleased to get these 4 packs. I managed, to sort of what's the word? Convince them or to persuade them to give me more packs in one prescription. So yeah, I think I've got enough for the rest of my taper, which feels like such a relief. It's like, oh, I don't have to worry about that
I
again.
can imagine. I can
Yeah.
imagine. Now, despite the fact that you still have one drug to taper, and,
Yeah.
and obviously you've healed quite a lot,
Mm.
are there like differences that you're experiencing in terms of cognition, emotions,
Mm.
after coming off of quetiapine and lorazepam?
Yeah, I think that the main things that were lingering was my eyesight, my tinnitus. Um, Yeah, like over time, it's just got so much better. When I was initially harmed, I would get like little symptoms like vibrating all over my body, or this feeling of like this strained feeling in my nervous system, like almost like maybe a mild akathisia feeling, like of restlessness. And that would sort of be rumbling under the surface. But as the years have gone by, I've felt like more human sensations rather than inhumane because like often a lot of the neurological symptoms are so inhumane, aren't they? You can't quite describe them to people because they're just not of this earth. Like
Hmm.
really sharp nerve pain that you'd think, God, my brain must be breaking in half, like with that kind of pain, or
Hmm.
weird sensations of dizziness, and I mean, there's just so many things like I can't even describe them. You
I
know?
get it, but I totally get it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I sometimes struggle with trying to convey this
yeah,
whole experience to non-benzo people or non-drug
mm,
harmed people. It's
yeah.
just so it's impossible. There are no words in the
Oh
dictionary to
no, word. I
describe it.
think
Yeah.
Sorry, I think because I tend to be like somebody who I've got a bit of a dark sense of humor. I sort of joke and giggle. It's just part of my personality. So I might be like, well, yeah, it's just like chemical warfare in your brain, basically. But
Yeah.
but then people just can't take you seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my best kind of explanation, especially for the acute, severe, wanting to die every day, benzo withdrawals, like if someone sets you on fire, but you don't burn, you just
Yes,
suffer. And
a
there's no
hundred
way of
percent.
putting the fire out. That's the only thing that I can think of because it seems, that's something everyone can
Mm,
visualize. Like, oh my God, that must be terrible for your body to be set on fire. You're not sleeping, and no one is able to put the fire out. And what the doctors are doing is throwing oil on your fire,
mm,
making it worse
mm.
with all these other drugs and bad information and advice and stuff. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the best thing that I can do
No,
in
that's a
terms of
good one,
therapy.
actually. That's a really good one because it's this is relentless feeling, isn't it? Of like, oh my God, when is this going to stop? Like you're in so much torture, and it's like that is like being burnt because you're on fire and you can't put it out, and you're like, oh my God,
And you're like there on the streets for everyone to see, like, I'm on fire,
I'm on
somebody help
fire, but
me.
like
And
no
if
one believes you, and everyone's just
yeah,
looking at you like,
why
what?
are you what's wrong with
I'm
you?
gonna section you.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That was
Yeah,
horrible for you to happen.
I know.
Oh my God. I can't believe that that happened to you. Gosh,
I
horrible.
can't believe it happened to me.
It's just, I mean,
It's
I'm
wild.
writing my book, obviously, and even writing everything is like, this is just such a bizarre experience. I'm
Mm,
amazed in a bad way. Like, I can't believe that this happened to me or to anyone for that matter, that this is
mm.
happening. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's bizarre. But it's been very healing for me to write my book.
Yes.
And processing the traumas
Hmm.
and crying a lot because of that. I did that last year, that whole crying and kind of like, oh
No,
my
that's
God,
really important.
mourning and stuff. Even though I'm not done, even though I'm still in the middle of this journey,
Hmm.
it was very, very healing for me to write all of the stuff that happened to me.
Definitely. And there's because this is a long journey, and anyone watching this, 100% you can heal. But it is long. It is like a time thing, and there are
Mhm.
years where you look back and yeah, there's a bit of mourning for the time lost.
Yeah, definitely. And
Mm.
all the things that could have been, should have been, or
I
whatever.
know.
It's like, oh, if I didn't get poisoned, maybe my life would be this.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
kind of trying to make sense of the new reality and trying to set a new course, a new
Mm.
path for your new future, whatever that is. Like, I'm kind of
100%.
dark too, but basically the old Naphthol, he was murdered. So he's the, he
Yeah.
died because
Yes.
of other people. He died. He was murdered. So luckily I'm still here. And there's
Yeah.
going to be a newer version of me, but that's basically what happened. So there's a lot of processing.
Mm.
And it's so true. Like this is a very lengthy journey for a lot of us.
Mm.
And what I've been learning recently, I would say, maybe even last year, it's not just about the whole tapering of the drugs and recovering from all the damage, but it's like how do you do that in those years with finances being an issue, with
Yeah.
whatever social life, relationships,
Yeah.
whatever's going on. Like how are you going to manage the whole
Mm. Hmm.
drug tapering as we're not completely healed yet? That's what I've been very challenged with.
Right? Like even surviving without this
Yes.
is it's challenging in this
Yeah.
modern day with all the inflation and the wars going on. I mean, there's just so much, isn't
Yes,
there?
crazy presidents, and we had a
Yeah.
pandemic before. Like, when does it end? I'm so glad that I'm not 16 anymore because I'm like, oh, if that would have been the world then,
Yeah.
I'm
It's not
glad I
great.
got to have some good times in my younger
Mm.
days. For
I
these newer
know.
generations, there are no homes. Where are people gonna live?
I
Everything is
know. There's
unaffordable.
so much to
Yeah.
navigate.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So for you, and I think this is very important for the audience, like during this whole, I mean, you're still tapering, obviously, but what are things that really helped you personally doing the quetiapine and the lorazepam taper?
Mm. I think what really helped me personally is like I have this will to not let this ruin my life. And I was just so angry, like this anger, I suppose, fueling me, this activist inside me, because also I was an actor before. I think a lot of actors tend to be activists because really why we become an actor is because we want people to not feel so alone and tell stories that help us all connect. And I suppose that personality was running in me, and I was like, I can't believe this happens to people. I have to tell this story. I have to like change this somehow. And so that was really what was driving me. But also, I think when you're polydrugged, or you're in a really, really long withdrawal, it's so easy to think forward and be like, I'm never going to heal. I see no way out of this. And I thought that, I mean, so much to the point that I tried to end my life because I was like, this isn't going to go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to urge people that your nervous system can heal and you can feel so harmed and so damaged and the symptoms you feel are so beyond this world, but you can go back, you can come back to being a human again, and your nervous system and body does want to heal. And it's miraculous that that can happen, but I see it all the time with people that I help and support through this. And I think, I suppose what helped me was each time I panicked about how long I had to taper, I just tried to focus on what I could do in the moment. And I've been focusing on my creativity, helping others, just anything that felt positive for my soul. And it really pushed me to do that. If I went and did like some soul destroying job, I don't know whether I would have survived this. Like I just had to go for the things that made me feel good.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
what were things that didn't really help you out? And in our previous recording, you did mention that you did this really long 4 day something drive,
Oh
and
God,
this
yeah.
was, I think, you just got off of quetiapine or something. Maybe you can share
Hmm.
with the audience this experience.
Yeah. So actually, interestingly, when I was tapering the quetiapine from the 100 to the 0, the taper was so much better. I did get a bit of air hunger, and there was a few weird neuro things going on, but very mild. And so it was going well. And then I was on 0.08, and I did this big drive from UK to Spain. I thought, well, I'm doing well on my taper, but also I couldn't afford the rent in the UK. It just went like that. And I was on benefits. I couldn't, if I hadn't had that help, I don't know what I would have done. But a lot of landlords don't want people on benefits. So it was really difficult for me to get anywhere if it wasn't through a friend that maybe had a room in their house. And so that was just all a nightmare. And so I decided to drive to Spain to my dad's and try and be there for a bit whilst I was carry on tapering, and have somewhere to be where I didn't feel like I had to constantly somehow get this rent together. Um, but I did the drive. It was 4 days. And when I got to my dad's, I was hit with a 2 month setback of migraines, body pain, all physical. It wasn't like I didn't have like any suicidal thoughts or anything. It was just physical stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which is really interesting to me because you can think 0.08, tiny, tiny, tiny little crumb, but there's still very much a lot going on under the surface. And I think we should definitely remember that when you feel like, oh, my taper's going really well. But if you've come from a harm place, there's definitely still stuff going on underneath. And there's no
Yeah.
such thing as being too careful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I did that as a really as a desperate attempt for survival, just to have somewhere to live. I wouldn't have normally done that then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. But
Yeah.
sometimes, like you said, we have to do what we have to do.
Yeah.
So, can you share with the audience what else is going on with you? What are you up to lately? Tell me about
hmm
What's Up Doc, your documentary.
Yes. So obviously I've been helping people through this. I started this thing called the Psych Med Sanctuary. It was beating the benzo before, but I
Yeah.
changed it to the Psych Med Sanctuary because I have experience of antidepressants, antipsychotics, and benzodiazepines. So I didn't want it to be all benzo related.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I obviously saw that it's sort of a wide thing that happens to everyone. So I've been doing that and I take calls and I support people. I've also started, don't know how, with the support really of my family, to train as a counselor. And so I'm on my second year, and in 3 years, you do 3 years, and then you're like a licensed therapist. And I'd love to be able to help people with all sorts of things, but also through this, because there isn't that many people really that properly get it. So I'd like to be that person. And I'm focusing on my creativity. So obviously before this I was an actor and I haven't let that go. I write my own music and I'm currently in the process of getting funding for a one-woman show, which is called Shaping Us. It's how we're shaped by our childhood and also how we're shaped by society. So I've weaved in how, this modern day, how we treat mental health with medication and how kind of fucked up that is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all in there. And then I've got these songs that are very much about the experience. So I look forward to sharing that because I think music and art is so powerful. And I think people often switch off on this subject, don't they? They just don't want to know. Like, as soon as you hear the word medication, but if you can kind of share the story in a different way, people, yeah, I think it goes in.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the documentary, which is great, and that is blossoming into something that could either be a 1 hour documentary or a three-part documentary series. And we've had some really great chats with somebody that could potentially help us get it on really good streaming services over here. And it's basically full of interviews from people that are trying to make change. It's telling my story, it's telling other people's stories. And yeah, it's really well done. And I saw the last edit and I was like, this is fantastic. Like, it's really, really good. And
Mm-hmm.
oh, I just want it to be
I
done. That's
can't wait for it to come out because it would be
yeah,
so awesome. I think it's great.
yeah.
I saw bits and pieces from it,
hmm
obviously, and
Yeah.
you posted some things on Instagram, so I can't wait. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for updating us, and
Yeah.
we'll speak to each other soon.
It was lovely to see you.
That was lovely to see you too.
Okay.